The stars looked cold and distant through the observation window of the flagship Eternal Dominion. Fleet Commander Thelnara stood with her forearms crossed behind her back, watching as the final battle groups moved into formation. She had spent 30 cycles preparing for this moment. 30 cycles of planning, gathering forces and convincing the collective council that humanity needed to be brought under control. Behind her, the bridge crew worked in silent efficiency. Screens displayed thousands of green dots, each one representing a warship from the 7 species of the Kashran Collective. 10,000 ships, the largest armada ever assembled in the history of the galaxy, and all of it aimed at one small cluster of star systems controlled by the humans. Thelnara's communications officer, a thin Varesh with pale blue skin, turned from his station.
"Commander, the final battle groups report ready."
"The fleet awaits your order," she nodded slowly. This was necessary. The humans had appeared in the galaxy only 200 cycles ago, stumbling out of their home system with primitive chemical rockets and wild ambitions. At first, the collective had welcomed them, offering membership and protection under their governance. It was the same offer made to all new spacefaring species. Join the collective, follow their laws, contribute resources, and receive safety from the dangers of the galaxy. Every other species had accepted. The humans had refused. That alone was unusual but not unforgivable. What made humanity dangerous was their unpredictability. They didn't follow the normal patterns. They built strange ships. They colonized worlds that other species considered worthless. They asked uncomfortable questions about why the collective needed so many warships if the galaxy was truly at peace. The collective council had debated for years. Some argued for patience. Others wanted immediate action. Thelnara had broken the deadlock with a simple argument. Humans were learning too fast. Their technology improved at an alarming rate. In another 100 cycles, they might actually become a threat. Better to absorb them now while they were still weak. The council had agreed. And so here she was, commanding 10,000 ships at the edge of human space. "Open a channel to the fleet," Thelnara commanded. Her voice carried the weight of authority earned through decades of service. "This is Fleet Commander Thelnara. Today we complete our mission. The humans will surrender or they will be conquered. Either way, by nightfall, human independence ends. For the collective." For the collective, 10,000 captains responded across the communication channels. Thelnara's tactical officer, a heavy-set chromian with gray scales, pulled up a holographic display of human space. "Commander, our intelligence reports indicate the humans have approximately 300 military vessels, spread across 12 colonies. Their largest concentration is at their homeworld Earth, perhaps 90 ships. And their technology level?" Thelnara asked, though she already knew the answer. "Inferior to ours in every category. Their ships are smaller, slower, and carry weaker weapons. Their shields cannot withstand sustained fire from even our light cruisers." The tactical officer tapped the display, highlighting human defensive positions. "We estimate complete military victory within 6 hours of engagement. Civilian compliance within 48 hours. It seemed almost too easy. Thelnara felt a small twinge of something that might have been doubt, but she pushed it away. The intelligence was solid. The humans simply didn't have the time or resources to build a fleet capable of challenging the collective. This was mathematics, not war. "Begin the advance," she ordered. "Standard conquest formation. All ships enter human space on my mark." The fleet moved forward like a wave of metal and energy. 10,000 ships organized into battle groups, each one more than enough to overwhelm any human defensive position. Their engines burned bright against the darkness of space as they crossed the invisible line that marked the border of human territory. Thelnara expected alarms, defensive scrambles, panicked communications. Instead, there was silence. Human space seemed empty, as if they had simply abandoned their territory. "Commander," the sensor officer called out, her voice uncertain. "I'm detecting something." A single ship emerging from slipspace directly ahead of the fleet. One ship? Thelnara moved to the sensor station, looking at the readings herself. The signature was clear. One vessel, human design, positioning itself directly in the path of 10,000 Kashran warships. "Verify that reading," she ordered. "Verified, Commander." One ship, medium size. "It's just sitting there." The bridge fell into confused silence. Thelnara's mind raced through possibilities. Was it a diplomatic vessel coming to negotiate surrender? That seemed most likely. Perhaps the humans had realized the futility of resistance and sent an ambassador. But why position it so far forward? Why not wait at a colony or return to Earth? Identification? She asked. The sensor officer worked her console. Human designation reads as UHSV Absolute Zero. It's broadcasting standard identification codes, but there's no matching ship in our intelligence database. A new ship. Perhaps their latest attempt at a warship, sent out to show they had at least tried to defend themselves before surrendering. Thelnara almost felt disappointed. She had expected at least a token resistance, a small battle to make the victory meaningful. Hail them, she ordered. The communication came through immediately, as if the human ship had been waiting for the call. The voice was female, calm, with the strange accent that all human language translations carried. This is Captain Sarah, Chen of the United Human Space Vessel Absolute Zero. I'm speaking on behalf of the Human Systems Alliance, Thelnara responded, keeping her voice formal and cold. This is Fleet Commander Thelnara of the Kashrin Collective. You are vastly outnumbered. I assume you have come to discuss terms of surrender. There was a pause. Then the human captain spoke again, and Thelnara detected something in her voice. Not fear, not resignation. Something else. Commander, I'm going to give you one chance. Turn your fleet around and return to collective space. This is your only warning. The bridge erupted in shocked chittering and low growls. An officer behind Thelnara laughed out loud. The communications officer looked like he had been struck. Even Thelnara felt her jaw muscles tighten in anger. One ship. One human ship. Facing 10,000 Kashrin vessels, and they were issuing warnings. Captain Chen, Thelnara said, her voice dropping to a dangerous growl. I will assume you are attempting humor, though it is poorly timed. You have one ship. I have 10,000. You will surrender immediately or be destroyed. Another pause. Thelnara could hear the faint hum of systems in the background of the communication channel. Then Captain Chen spoke again, and now her voice carried something that made Thelnara's scales itch. Confidence. Commander, with respect, you're thinking about this wrong. We didn't send one ship because it's all we have. We sent one ship because it's all we need. The communication channel closed. Thelnara stared at the view screen, where the single human ship sat in the darkness, small and insignificant against the backdrop of her massive fleet. Around her, the bridge crew had fallen silent again, but now it was a different kind of silence. Uncertain. Uncomfortable. Commander? Her tactical officer asked quietly. Your orders? Thelnara straightened her shoulders. This was clearly a bluff. The humans were buying time or trying to unnerve her forces. It wouldn't work. Battle Group 7, she commanded. Send forward a probe squadron. 50 ships. Disable that vessel and retrieve the crew for questioning. Non-lethal force only. I want to know what game they're playing. 50 ships broke formation and began moving toward the Absolute Zero. The human ship didn't move, didn't activate shields, didn't power weapons. It simply floated there, waiting. Thelnara watched, expecting the ship to break and run at any moment. 50 against 1. No commander, no matter how brave or foolish, would simply sit and wait for that. But the human ship did exactly that. It waited, and Thelnara felt the first cold touch of real doubt creep into her mind. The 50 ships of the probe squadron moved through space in a perfect military formation. Thelnara watched them on the main view screen, their engines glowing as they closed the distance to the lone human vessel. The Absolute Zero still hadn't moved. It hung in space like a piece of debris, making no attempt to flee or defend itself. Distance to target, 200,000 kilometers. The tactical officer reported. Squadron leader reports weapon systems armed and ready, targeting the human ship's engines and power systems. Thelnara kept her eyes fixed on the screen. This would be over in moments. The squadron would disable the ship, board it, and they would finally get answers. Then the real invasion could begin. 100,000 kilometers. Squadron is spreading into engagement formation. The 50 ships fanned out, surrounding the Absolute Zero from multiple angles. It was textbook tactics, designed to prevent any chance of escape. Not that escape seemed possible. The human ship was outnumbered 50 to 1 and was barely moving. 50,000 kilometers. Squadron leader requesting permission to fire. Permission granted, Thelnara said. Disable that ship. The squadron leader gave the order. 50 ships, each carrying enough firepower to level a city, targeted the lone human vessel. Their weapons locked on, Firing solutions calculated. Triggers engaged. And in that fraction of a second, the absolute zero flickered. Thelnara blinked. One moment the ship was there, the next it seemed to blur, like an image distorted by heat waves. The sensors lost track of it completely for less than half a second. When it reappeared exactly where it had been, everything had changed. The 50 ships of the probe squadron simply stopped. Their engines cut out, their weapons powered down, their shields collapsed. They drifted forward on momentum alone, dark and silent. "Report," Thelnara shouted, gripping the edge of her command console. Chaos erupted across the bridge. Officers shouted over each other, pulling up displays, running diagnostics, trying to understand what had just happened. Squadron ships are not responding to communications. Emergency beacons are active on all 50 vessels. Life support systems are still functional, but everything else is offline. How? Thelnara demanded, staring at the absolute zero, which sat exactly where it had been before, as if nothing had happened. How did they do that? Her tactical officer worked frantically at his console, reviewing sensor data. "Commander, I don't know." The human ship moved, but our sensors barely registered it. The movement lasted 0.3 seconds. In that time, it appears to have approached and disabled all 50 ships. "That's impossible," Thelnara said flatly. "No ship can move that fast. No weapon can disable 50 targets simultaneously without destroying them." "I'm telling you what the sensors recorded, Commander. The data is here." Thelnara looked at the readings herself. The numbers made no sense. The absolute zero had somehow moved at speeds that should have torn it apart, and it had done something to the squadron ships that left their crews alive but completely powerless. The communication channel opened again. Captain Chen's voice, still calm, filled the bridge. "Commander Thelnara, your crews are unharmed. Life support is functioning. They'll be uncomfortable for a few hours, but they're safe. Consider this a demonstration." Thelnara's hands trembled with rage. Or was it fear? She wasn't sure anymore. "What did you do to my ships?" "Nothing permanent. Think of it as a very advanced form of electronic warfare. Your systems will reboot eventually. But Commander, you need to understand something. This isn't a battle. This is a demonstration." "A demonstration of what?" "Of why you should turn around and go home." Thelnara cut the communication with a sharp gesture. Her mind was racing. The humans had clearly developed some kind of new weapon, something her intelligence hadn't discovered. But 50 ships? Disabled in under a second? The technology required for such a thing was beyond anything in collective records. Her second-in-command, a cautious Varesh named Corell, approached her station. "Commander, perhaps we should consider the captain's suggestion. If they have more ships with this capability." "They don't," Thelnara interrupted. She couldn't afford to show uncertainty in front of her crew. If they had more ships like this, they would have sent them. This is their ace, their one surprise weapon. We've seen it now. We can adapt. How do we adapt to something we don't understand?" "With overwhelming force," Thelnara said. She turned to her tactical officer. "Battle Group 4, 500 ships. Full combat spread. I want that human vessel destroyed. Not disabled, destroyed." The tactical officer hesitated. "Commander, if it can disable 50 ships, 500 might." "Do it." The order went out. 500 ships, 10 times the force of the probe squadron, broke formation and began moving toward the absolute zero. This time, Thelnara had ordered lethal force. Whatever trick the humans had used, it wouldn't matter if their ship was reduced to atoms. The battle group moved forward in waves, creating overlapping fields of fire. No single ship would have a clear shot. Instead, they would create a wall of destructive energy that nothing could survive. The absolute zero began to move. It didn't flee. Instead, it accelerated directly toward the incoming battle group. Thelnara watched in disbelief as the single human ship charged straight at 500 warships. "They're insane," someone muttered behind her. The first wave of Kashran ships opened fire. Energy beams, missiles, kinetic projectiles, everything they had poured toward the absolute zero. The space between the two forces lit up with weapons fire. Enough destructive power to crack a planet's crust. The human ship moved through it like smoke through a net. It wasn't dodging. It wasn't tanking hits with shields. It simply wasn't there when the weapons arrived. Thelnara watched as missiles detonated in empty space, as energy beams struck nothing, as projectiles sailed through the void where the absolute zero should have been. "How is it doing that?" Thelnara whispered. The human ship reached the battle group's formation. What happened next would haunt Thelnara's dreams for years to come. The Absolute Zero moved through the Kashran ships like a ghost through walls. It passed within meters of hulls, and as it did, those ships died. Weapon systems shut down. Engines cut out. Shields collapsed. One by one, in rapid succession, 500 warships became 500 floating hulks. And through it all, not a single life support system failed. Not a single crew member was harmed. The entire engagement lasted 12 minutes. When it was over, 500 ships drifted powerless in space, and the Absolute Zero returned to its original position, exactly where it had started. As if the entire battle had been nothing more than a brief interruption, Captain Chen's voice came over the communications channel again. "Commander, I need you to understand something. We're not here to kill you. We're here to show you why you can't kill us." Thelnara's legs felt weak. She sat down in her command chair heavily, staring at the view screen. 550 ships, disabled without a single casualty. "Without taking any visible damage, what are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. There was a long pause. When Captain Chen spoke again, her voice carried something that might have been sympathy. "We're human, Commander, and we learned a long time ago that the galaxy was dangerous. We had two choices when we reached the stars. Build a massive fleet we couldn't afford, or revolutionize what one ship could do. We chose the second option. This ship, it's impossible. It's not impossible. It's just advanced. Every human military vessel is built with technology that your civilization hasn't discovered yet. Quantum navigation, adaptive AI systems, weapons designed not to destroy but to disable. The Absolute Zero isn't even a warship in the traditional sense, Commander. It's a demonstrator. It's built to end wars without firing a shot." Thelnara looked around her bridge. Her crew stared back at her with fear in their eyes, the eyes of people who had just realized they were facing something completely beyond their understanding. "You could have destroyed us," Thelnara said. "Yes. But why would we? You came here expecting a battle. We're giving you something better. We're giving you a choice, and what choice? Turn around and go home, or stay and watch as we disable every single ship in your fleet without harming a single crew member. Either way, this invasion ends today. The only question is whether it ends with dialogue or demonstration." Thelnara closed her eyes. She had commanded fleets for 30 years. She had conquered 12 worlds. She had never once retreated from a fight, but she had never faced an enemy like this. An enemy that could win without killing. An enemy that treated war itself as obsolete. "Give me time," she said quietly. "Let me think." "You have 1 hour," Captain Chen replied. "Then I'll assume you've made your choice." The communication ended. Thelnara sat in her command chair, staring at the single human ship that had just defeated 550 of her vessels without breaking a sweat. And for the first time in her military career, Fleet Commander Thelnara truly understood the meaning of fear. The bridge of the Eternal Dominion had never been so quiet. Thelnara sat in her command chair, surrounded by officers who didn't know what to say or do. 550 ships floated dead in space, their crews alive but helpless, waiting for rescue shuttles that would take hours to reach them all. And one human ship sat watching them, patient and undamaged. Corell approached carefully, his voice low. "Commander, the senior officers are requesting a meeting. They want to know what our next move is." Thelnara looked at him with tired eyes. "What do you think our next move should be?" He hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the question. I think we should consider the possibility that we've made a terrible mistake. By coming here, by underestimating them." Coral gestured at the view screen showing the Absolute Zero. "Commander, that ship disabled 550 of our vessels in minutes. It didn't even seem to try hard. If the humans have more ships like that, they might not." Thelnara interrupted, but her voice lacked conviction. "This could be their only one. A prototype, something they can't produce in quantity. And if it isn't, if they have dozens? Hundreds?" Coral's voice grew more urgent. "Commander, we have 9,000 ships left. But what good are 9,000 ships against technology we can't touch, can't hit, can't stop?" Thelnara knew he was right. The mathematics that had seemed so clear before, 10,000 against 300, meant nothing now. Numbers didn't matter when your weapons couldn't find their target and your ship stopped working at the enemy's whim. The communication channel opened again without warning. Captain Chen's voice filled the bridge, calm and professional. Commander Thelnara, your hour is half over, but I wanted to offer you some additional information to help with your decision. What information? Thelnara asked, her voice hoarse. We've been monitoring your fleet's internal communications. We know your officers are divided. Some want to continue the assault, others want to retreat. I want to show you why the first option would be a mistake. Before Thelnara could respond, data packets began flooding into the Eternal Dominion's communication systems. Her communications officer looked up in surprise. Commander, the human ship is transmitting files, records from the disabled ships, medical data, system logs, even personal communications from the crews. Show me, Thelnara ordered. The main view screen switched from the exterior view to a data display. Thelnara saw medical scans showing crew members frightened but physically unharmed. She saw system logs proving that the Absolute Zero had carefully avoided damaging life support, gravity generators, or emergency systems. She saw communications from panicked crew members calling for help, and responses from their own fleet delayed by confusion and distance. And she saw something else. Timestamps. Precise timestamps showing exactly when each ship had been disabled, and how long the Absolute Zero had been in range of each vessel. The average time was 0.4 seconds per ship. Less than half a second, Thelnara's tactical officer said, his voice shaking. It took less than half a second to disable each ship, Captain Chen's voice continued. We deliberately slowed down, Commander. We wanted you to see what was happening. We wanted you to understand that this isn't a battle. When you fight a battle, both sides have a chance to win. This is something different. What is it then? Thelnara asked bitterly. It's a lesson. One we learned the hard way and one we're trying to teach you before you make the same mistakes we did. Thelnara leaned forward. What mistakes? When humans first reached the stars, we were scared. We found evidence of dozens of spacefaring civilizations, and we realized how far behind we were. Some of us wanted to build massive fleets for protection. Others wanted to hide and hope no one noticed us. But a few people had a different idea. Captain Chen paused as if gathering her thoughts. Thelnara found herself hanging on every word. Those people asked a simple question. What if we could make it impossible for anyone to threaten us without building an empire? What if we could develop technology so advanced that no one would dare attack? But we wouldn't need to conquer anyone to be safe. So you built super weapons, Thelnara said. No, we built super defense. There's a difference. The Absolute Zero can disable your ships, but it can't destroy them without considerable effort. It's designed to protect, not to attack. It's designed to end conflicts by making them pointless. Thelnara shook her head. That's just word games. A weapon is a weapon, is it? Commander, if I wanted to destroy your fleet, it would already be done. Every ship here would be debris. Instead, 550 ships are intact with living crews. That's not a weapon. That's a statement. A statement of what? That humanity doesn't want to fight you. We don't want to conquer you. We don't even want to humiliate you. We just want you to leave us alone. Thelnara felt something crack inside her chest. Anger, maybe, or shame. Then why develop such powerful technology? Why build ships like this if not to dominate? Because we were terrified, Captain Chen said simply. We came late to a crowded galaxy and we learned that empires like yours existed. We learned about the Kasharin Collective, about your 7 species united under one banner, about your fleets that enforce your will across 100 star systems. We realized that if we wanted to stay free, we needed to make sure you could never force us to join. So you built a fleet to rival ours. No, we couldn't afford that, and we didn't want to become what we feared. Instead, we built ships like the Absolute Zero, ships that could protect our freedom without requiring us to conquer anyone else's. The bridge was silent except for the quiet hum of systems. Thelnara's mind raced through implications. If the humans were telling the truth, if they really had developed this technology out of fear rather than ambition, then what did that say about the collective? Her communications officer interrupted her thoughts. Commander, we're receiving another transmission. From the Collective Council. Thelnara's blood went cold. The Council. They would have been monitoring the fleet's progress. They would have seen the disaster unfolding. Put it through. Private channel. The holographic display flickered, showing the 7 council members, one from each species of the collective. Their faces showed a mixture of anger and fear. Council leader Vrem spoke first, his voice tight. Commander Thelnara, explain what we are witnessing. Thelnara straightened in her chair. Council Leader, the humans possess technology beyond our current understanding. They have disabled 550 ships without casualties. I am currently assessing our options. Your options? Another council member hissed. You have 9,000 ships remaining. Overwhelm them with numbers. With respect, council member, numbers may not be sufficient. The human ship moves and strikes faster than we can track or defend against. Frame's eyes narrowed. Are you suggesting retreat? Thelnara took a deep breath. Her entire career balanced on the next words out of her mouth. I am suggesting that we may have made an error in our assessment of human capabilities. An error that could cost us this entire fleet if we proceed recklessly. Unacceptable, Frame said. The collective does not retreat. Press the attack with all available forces. If this human ship is as powerful as you claim, destroying it is even more critical. We cannot allow such technology to exist outside our control. And if we cannot destroy it, if we lose the entire fleet? That, Frame said coldly, would be your failure, Commander. Not the collective's. The transmission ended. Thelnara sat back in her chair, feeling the weight of impossible choices. The council wanted her to continue. Her instincts screamed at her to retreat, and Captain Chen's words echoed in her mind. We don't want to fight you. She opened the channel to the absolute zero. Captain Chen, I need to ask you something. Go ahead. Commander, how many ships like yours does humanity have? There was a long pause. Then Captain Chen answered, and Thelnara heard something new in her voice. Not threat. Not pride. Something closer to sadness. I can't tell you that, Commander. But I can tell you this, the Absolute Zero has 6 sister ships. And if you force us to, we'll bring them all here. And your fleet won't survive the encounter. 6 more, Thelnara whispered. 7 total. 7 ships that could potentially disable her entire fleet. But it doesn't have to come to that, Captain Chen continued. You still have a choice. Turn around, go home. Tell your council that humanity is not a threat unless you make us one. Or stay, and learn exactly how powerful we've become. Your choice, Commander. But choose now. Thelnara looked around her bridge at faces waiting for her decision. She thought about the council's orders. She thought about her career, her honor, her pride. She thought about 30 years of military service and the weight of tradition. Then she thought about 550 disabled ships and crews waiting to be rescued. She thought about what would happen if she lost 9,000 more ships. She thought about what kind of leader sends people to die in an unwinnable fight just to save face. And slowly, painfully, Thelnara made her choice. Thelnara stood up from her command chair. Every eye on the bridge turned toward her. She could feel the weight of their expectations, their fear, their trust that she would make the right decision, whatever that was. Open a channel, she said quietly, all fleet frequencies, and a direct line to the collective council. Her communications officer's hands shook slightly as he worked his console. Channels open, Commander. The fleet is listening. The council is listening. Thelnara took a deep breath. This would end her career. She knew that. The council would never forgive what she was about to do. But perhaps some things mattered more than careers. This is Fleet Commander Thelnara to all ships. Cease all offensive operations immediately. All ships are to hold position and await further orders. She paused, then continued. I am also ordering the cessation of all hostile actions against human forces. Effective immediately, we are standing down. The bridge erupted in shocked voices. Coral stepped forward, relief clear on his face. But before anyone could respond, the holographic display activated again. Council Leader Vrame's face appeared, twisted with fury. Commander Thelnara, you do not have authorization to... With respect, Council Leader, I have full tactical authority over this fleet, Thelnara interrupted. And I am exercising that authority to prevent unnecessary losses. We are facing an enemy we do not understand with capabilities we cannot counter. Proceeding would be suicide, not. It would be your duty, Frame shouted. The collective does not surrender. We do not negotiate with upstart species who refuse to accept our protection. Then perhaps, Thelnara said carefully, the collective needs to learn that protection offered at gunpoint isn't protection at all. The silence that followed was deafening. Frame's face went through several shades of color. The other council members looked between each other uncertainly. Finally, Vrame spoke, his voice like ice. You are relieved of command, effective immediately. You will return to collective space to face charges of cowardice and failure to execute orders. I accept your decision, Thelnara said. But before I go, I'm sending you everything we've recorded. Every sensor reading. Every tactical analysis, everything. You need to see what we're facing here. And then you need to make a real decision, not one based on pride. She cut the transmission before Vram could respond. Then she turned to Corell. You're in command now. The Council will appoint someone officially, but until then, the fleet is yours. Corell looked stunned. Commander, don't continue the attack, Thelnara said firmly. No matter what the Council orders. These people have given us every chance to walk away. Take it. Before Corell could respond, Captain Chen's voice came over the communication channel again. Commander Thelnara, I heard your transmission. For what it's worth, I think you made a brave choice. A career-ending choice, Thelnara said bitterly. Maybe. But you saved a lot of lives. Both yours and ours. That counts for something. Thelnara walked to the view screen, looking out at the absolute zero. Captain Chen, I need to ask you something, and I need an honest answer. Go ahead. Why are you doing this? Why not just destroy us and be done with it? Why all this effort to avoid casualties, to give us chances to retreat? We came here to conquer you. We don't deserve mercy. There was a long pause. When Captain Chen spoke again, her voice was thoughtful. You're right that you came here to conquer us. But Commander, you didn't create the collective. You didn't write its laws or decide its policies. You're a soldier following orders just like your crews, just like thousands of people in your fleet who have families waiting for them at home. Why should they die because some politicians made a bad decision? Thelnara felt something tight in her chest loosen slightly. Most species wouldn't see it that way. Maybe not. But humans have a long history of fighting wars we later regretted. We've killed millions of our own people over territory, resources, beliefs, and we learned something from all that blood. We learned that the people doing the dying are usually not the people who started the fight. So you spare us out of, what, sympathy? Out of understanding, Captain Chen corrected. And out of hope. Hope for what? Hope that maybe, just maybe, if we show you a better way to do this, you might choose it. Hope that the galaxy doesn't have to be endless cycles of conquest and resistance. Hope that someday species like yours and mine can coexist without one having to dominate the other. Thelnara laughed, a bitter sound. The Council will never accept that. They'll send another fleet, and another, until either we win or you destroy us all. Maybe, Captain Chen admitted, but I don't think so. Want to know why? Why? Because we're not keeping this technology to ourselves. Thelnara froze. What? The defensive systems on the absolute zero. The technology that let us disable your ships without harming crews. We're prepared to share it. Thelnara struggled to find words. That's insane. You'd give us your greatest advantage? It's not a weapon, Commander. It's a defense. And yes, we'll share it. With you, with the collective, with anyone who wants it. For free. Why would you do that? Captain Chen's answer came immediately, as if she'd been waiting for the question. Because we realize something important. As long as only we have this technology, everyone else will fear us. They'll try to steal it or destroy us to prevent us from using it. But if everyone has it, then no one needs to be afraid. If everyone can defend themselves this way, then building huge fleets for conquest becomes pointless. Thelnara's mind reeled. You're trying to make war obsolete. We're trying to make conquest obsolete, Captain Chen corrected. There's a difference. People will always have conflicts. But maybe, if we change the tools available, we can change how those conflicts get resolved. The Council will never agree to this. Then we'll share it with individual species. With colonies that want independence, with anyone who asks. Commander, we're not trying to control the galaxy. We're trying to free it, and the first step is making sure no one species can force their will on all the others. A new transmission came through. Coral stepped forward. Commander Thelnara, the Council is demanding we resume. He stopped, listening to something on his earpiece. His eyes went wide. Commander, we're receiving data transmissions from the human ship. Massive amounts of technical data, specifications, blueprints, theoretical frameworks. That's the defensive technology, Captain Chen said. We're sending it now. Everything you need to understand it, replicate it, improve it. It's yours. No conditions, no strings attached. Thelnara looked at the data scrolling across displays. Her science officers were already studying it, their faces showing shock and excitement. This was beyond anything in collective technology, years, maybe decades ahead, and the humans were just giving it away. I don't understand, Thelnara said quietly. If you give this to us, we could use it against you. We could study it, find weaknesses, use it to improve our own offensive capabilities. You could try, Captain Chen agreed. But Commander, by the time you finish understanding that technology, we'll have moved on to the next generation. We're not afraid of you learning from us. We're afraid of you forcing us to destroy you. And if we take this technology and still attack you, then you'll be attacking us with ships that can't be destroyed easily, only disabled. Just like ours. Which means the worst you can do is create a stalemate. No conquest. No domination. Just a very expensive standoff that no one can win. Thelnara started to laugh. It began as a small chuckle but grew into full, genuine laughter. Her crew looked at her with concern, but she couldn't stop. The humans had done it. They'd found a way to win without fighting. They'd made the entire concept of the collective's military superiority meaningless. You're trying to disarm the galaxy by making everyone equally powerful, she said when she finally caught her breath. Is it working? Captain Chen asked, and Thelnara could hear the smile in her voice. I think, Thelnara said slowly, it might be. But the Council won't see it that way. Not immediately. They'll see it as a threat. Let them. Commander, here's what I think will happen. Your Council will study this technology. They'll realize it works. They'll start building ships with it, and then they'll realize something. What? That if all their ships can defend themselves this way, they don't need massive fleets anymore. They don't need to spend half their resources on weapons. They can invest in their people instead, in science, education, quality of life. And once they start doing that, once they see the benefits, they won't want to go back to the old way. You're betting everything on economic incentive and on basic human, sentient nature. Given the choice between spending resources on endless warfare or improving their own lives, most people choose the latter. Your leaders will too, eventually. They just need to see that the choice exists. Thelnara looked at her crew, at the officers who had followed her into what should have been a simple conquest, and instead found something that might change the entire galaxy. Captain Chen, she said, what happens now? Now? You rescue your disabled ships. You take the technology we've given you. And you go home. And maybe in a few months or years we talk again, not as enemies, not as conqueror and conquered, but as equals. The Council will call that weakness. Let them. You know what you saw here today. So does everyone in your fleet. Word will spread, and the truth is harder to suppress than the Council thinks. 6 months had passed since the fleet returned to collective space. 6 months that had changed everything. Thelnara stood in a small observation room aboard the Wayward Hope, watching through the viewport as the ship's new defensive systems ran through their final tests. She wasn't a fleet commander anymore. The Council had stripped her of rank just as she'd known they would. But they hadn't imprisoned her, hadn't executed her. Instead, after much debate, they'd assigned her to a new role, technical advisor for the Human Defense Initiative. It was a meaningless title, really. What she actually did was help the collective's engineers understand the technology the humans had given them. She translated Captain Chen's gift into something her people could build, could use, could integrate into their existing ships. The viewport showed a test in progress. A collective patrol ship, retrofitted with the new systems, sat in space while a dozen attack drones fired at it from multiple angles. Thelnara watched as the ship flickered, just like the Absolute Zero had, and the drones went dark. Coral entered the observation room, carrying 2 containers of hot tea. He'd been promoted to commander after Thelnara's removal, but he'd requested assignment to the same project. He said someone needed to make sure she didn't get into more trouble. The test was successful, he said, handing her a container. All 12 drones disabled, no damage to the patrol ship. Total engagement time 4 seconds. 4 seconds, Thelnara repeated. The Absolute Zero could have done it in less than 1. We'll get faster with practice, Coral sipped his tea. 6 months ago I would have said this technology was impossible. Now we're installing it on our patrol ships. And in 2 years every ship in the collective fleet will have it, Thelnara said. The Council's orders. They want full integration. Can't blame them. Once they saw it work, once they ran the numbers on how much money they'd save. Coral shook his head. Turns out Captain Chen was right. Economic incentive is powerful. Thelnara smiled slightly. She was right about a lot of things. The door opened again. A young Varesh officer entered, looking nervous. Former Commander Thelnara? You have a visitor. From Earth. Thelnara's pulse quickened. Show them in. Captain Sarah Chen walked into the observation room looking exactly as Thelnara had imagined her during their voice-only communications. She was shorter than expected, with dark hair pulled back in a simple style and sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. She wore a formal uniform with minimal decoration. Commander Thelnara, Chen said, extending her hand in the human greeting gesture. Thelnara took it, trying to remember the correct amount of pressure. Former commander. And please, just Thelnara. I'm not military anymore. Neither am I, technically, Chen said with a slight smile. I've been reassigned to the diplomatic corps. Turns out disabling fleets is only useful until everyone learns how to do it. Then you need people who can actually talk to each other. Coral gestured to chairs and they all sat. Chen looked out the viewport at the test ship. Is that one of yours? With our defensive tech. Yes, Thelnara said. One of the first. We're rolling it out across the fleet. How's it working? Better than we expected. Your people were very thorough in the documentation. Chen nodded. We wanted to make sure it was usable. No point in sharing technology if no one can figure out how to build it. She paused, then added, I heard about what happened after you returned. The council stripping your rank. I'm sorry, Thelnara waved a hand dismissively. It was expected. I disobeyed orders. In the collective military, that has consequences. You saved thousands of lives. The council doesn't always value that as highly as obedience. Thelnara met Chen's eyes. But I don't regret it. What I saw that day, what you showed me, it needed to be shown. Even if it cost me my career. Chen looked at her for a long moment, then smiled. You know, that's actually why I'm here. Not just to check on the technology transfer. I have a proposition for you. What kind of proposition? Earth is establishing a new organization. We're calling it the Mutual Defense Coalition. It's designed to help species share defensive technology, resolve conflicts without warfare, and generally try to make the galaxy a little less hostile. I've heard rumors about it, Coral said. The council is suspicious. They would be, Chen said. But here's the thing. We need people from different species, people who understand both military thinking and the value of choosing peace over pride, people who've seen what's possible when you're willing to try something new. She looked directly at Thelnara. We want you, Thelnara blinked. Me? You, as a founding member of the coalition. You'd work with representatives from human space and several other species who've contacted us. Your job would be helping integrate defensive technologies, training officers in their use, and serving as a bridge between humanity and the collective. The council would never approve. We already asked them, Chen said. Took some negotiating, but they agreed. I think they see it as a way to keep tabs on what we're doing, but honestly, I don't care about their reasons. I care about their answer, which was yes. Thelnara looked at Coral, who was grinning. You knew about this? I might have been contacted, he admitted. They wanted to know if you'd be interested before making a formal offer. And you said? I said you'd be perfect for it. Because you would be. Thelnara turned back to Chen, her mind racing. What exactly would this involve? Chen leaned forward. Right now, we've shared the defensive technology with the collective and 3 other species. But there are dozens more who've expressed interest. We need people to help facilitate those transfers, to train crews, to help design new applications. Beyond that, we need mediators, people who can help resolve conflicts before they become wars. That's ambitious, it is. But 6 months ago, the idea of the Kashran Collective accepting human technology was ambitious too. Sometimes ambitious is just another word for necessary. Thelnara stood and walked to the viewport looking out at the stars. 6 months ago, she'd been a fleet commander prepared to conquer human space. Now she was being offered a chance to help build something completely different, something that might actually change the galaxy. Can I ask you something? She said, not turning around. Of course. That day when you faced my fleet with 1 ship, were you scared? There was a pause. Then Chen answered honestly. Terrified. The absolute zero is powerful, but it's not invincible. If you'd all rushed us at once, if you'd been willing to sacrifice enough ships, you might have found a weakness. Every time I spoke to you, I was praying you'd make the smart choice and leave. But you never showed it. Couldn't afford to. Negotiation is partly about confidence. But Thelnara, here's the truth. I didn't want to fight you. Not because I was afraid of losing, but because I was afraid of winning. Every ship we disabled was full of people who were just following orders. People with families, dreams, lives. The thought of having to potentially kill them if things went wrong. That terrified me more than any weapon. Thelnara turned to face her. Then why do it? Why put yourself in that position? Because someone had to. Because if we'd let your fleet through, if we'd shown weakness, you'd have conquered us, and then other species would have tried. We'd never be safe. So we showed strength instead. But we tried to show it in a way that left room for something better than war. And now you're trying to spread that philosophy across the galaxy. We're trying, Chen agreed. It won't be easy. There are species out there that won't accept it, that will see our defensive technology as a challenge to overcome, rather than an invitation to peace. But we have to try. Because the alternative is just more of what the galaxy has always had. Conquest, domination, and resistance. Endless cycles of violence. Thelnara walked back to her chair and sat down. She looked at Corel, who nodded encouragingly. She looked at Chen, who waited patiently. And she thought about the last 6 months, about everything that had changed, about all the lives saved by one choice to turn away from pride and toward pragmatism. I have one condition, she said finally. Name it. I want Corel as part of the team too. You need multiple collective representatives, people who understand our military from different perspectives. And I trust him? Chen looked at Corel, who straightened in surprise. I hadn't considered that, but it makes sense. Corel, would you be interested? Corel looked between them. I'd need to request reassignment. The council might not approve 2 of us. Let us handle the council, Chen said. If you're willing, we'll make it happen. Corel nodded slowly. Then yes, I'm willing. Chen stood and extended her hand again, first to Thelnara, then to Corel. Welcome to the Mutual Defense Coalition. Fair warning, we're making this up as we go. There's no handbook for trying to revolutionize galactic politics. Good, Thelnara said, taking the offered hand. I've never been very good at following handbooks anyway. Chen laughed, a warm sound that somehow made the future seem a little less daunting. I noticed. That's why you're perfect for this. As they discussed details and made plans, Thelnara looked out the viewport again. The test ship was powering up for another run, its new defensive systems ready. In a few years, Hundi,